The lag is gone.
Is it? I hope so.
I'm delighted. I've never heard you talk this promptly before.
Oh, thank you. Well, I hope you're right because right now it
Did you
says
just freeze on
uploading.
purpose?
No,
Oh
are you
my
kidding me?
god! No,
Dude,
I thought you were pranking me.
no.
Okay, you're fine now. Okay. I'm just gonna stop talking about it. I'm clearly jinxing it.
It says uploading 82%.
Yeah,
83, 85.
that might be
86.
an internet thing then. But congratulations on your new computer.
That may or may not be any more useful. Okay, maybe we have to get that recording studio faster than I thought.
Yeah. Do you love her, the new laptop?
This is my first time using her. So
welcome.
Currently she's giving a bad reputation to herself with
she's to me it sounds better than ever.
Well, thank you. The audio is exactly the same because I haven't touched my Rodecaster. And but the camera's nicer.
I was gonna say you look very clear in your camera now.
Interesting. So much for that really expensive webcam I bought. But okay, great. I'm glad that this works better. She's just surpassing expectations that we didn't have, and she's barely meeting the expectations we did have. So
it's awkward matchup. Maybe not soulmate level, but it's okay.
It's okay. She's doing good.
Yours just got up to 99% uploaded, so I'm pretty excited.
Let's hope it stays there because I'm nervous.
Why do I keep talking about it?
Because we have, I think, a little trauma from this.
I'm so sweaty.
What people don't know is that for months, we have been constantly keeping an eye on my upload levels on my laptop, and it's never been good, which is what forced me to get a laptop last time. But now I think we're both just like primed to have to stare at it out of fear.
Yeah, I feel like this constant anytime something's even a little bit off. So I'm gonna get over it. But in the meantime, I will just try to ignore it.
Well, you know what we're supposed to talk about this week?
I don't remember.
It's okay because it's
your new house.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, so can I say one thing beforehand, which I just want to say because it's not a big thing. I just want to say it before I forget, and I know I'll get wrapped up in your new house.
Okay.
Happy Mother's Day to everybody who is a mother, identifies as a mother, doesn't have any mother figures, and it's like, anybody out there. Happy Mother's Day, whatever that means to you. And also, Blaze and Leona surprised me with a trip to the Appalachian Festival over here in Cincinnati. So it was the best day ever, and highly recommend if you're in the area and you need something to do next Mother's Day. It's a great place. I bought a broom. And
sounds like a mother.
Yeah, well, it was like one of those handmade, brooms from people because they have a lot of like living history displays and like churning butter and shit, and so there's a guy who's a broom maker, and it's like generations of broom makers. It's this gorgeous thing. I'm gonna like hang it up here, I think. And the like teenager who sold it to me was like, "Oh, I don't know how much he charges for this, grandfather." And I was like, oh my god. Oh my gosh.
Living history indeed. Wow.
I was like, wow. And that was like not any sort of character. Like
I would not be able to control my face if someone called their grandfather in front of me.
Well, I thankfully was staring at some brooms and was making I just pretended I was just enamored by the brooms, which I also was. And I bought a little house that is made of like found wood scraps, and there's a little light in it, and it plugs in so that it's like a cabin with like logs. It's so cute. Anyway, so it was a great time. We ate.
Was it just like a living history festival, or was there like
no? It's just there's music. They had Native American dancing. They had a Navajo flute player, and I got like so enraptured by that now when I go to sleep, I just listen to Navajo flute music. Like I've just
great.
It was so cool, and they had all different kind of aspects of Appalachian history. They had trinkets you could buy. They had different foods that woolly beans. I don't know, lots of stuff that is very Appalachian. And then they sold crafts. They had like the living history kind of immersive part. They had lots of live music, dancing, like a lot of what do you call it? Oh my gosh, clogging, I think.
Sure.
Just it was just very cool and there's a lot going on, a lot of live music. There was live storytelling. Like
Ooh.
with these two older men who bring their little like storytelling truck around, and then they do like storytelling sessions with an audience. Anyway, so it was very cool, and I just want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day. So now let's talk about the more important thing, Em.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. I only said it because I knew I would forget if I didn't say something. But yeah, we have had a lot of things go on in our lives since we recorded that. And that includes you seeing the house, which I think we said the second half of this would be us you giving a full review, a Beach to Sandy
Yes,
Yelp review, if you will, on the house.
5 stars. Would give it 6 if I could. I can't wait for the updates that you've already planned out, but I think it's beautiful. Like you are not kidding. It is turnkey. You walk in, it's gorgeous. The woman who lived there before did a beautiful job renovating it. Even has like very millennial coded like floral wallpaper accents. Like it's just beautiful. And I was just very impressed, and I think it's going to be a very happy home. It has a gorgeous little yard with with a garage. I mean, it's just really beautiful. I'm just so happy for you.
And the garage will one day be the studio, or some
Yes.
element of it will be the
So they're
studio. So
renovating that whole space, which is going to add a ton of square footage.
yeah, it's
Um,
gonna like I think we're the goal is to like triple our square footage, at
which is
least
like a
double it.
wild thought,
So
but it's LA, folks. Remember that.
yeah, we got to build on top of it instead of
You
out.
got to build up.
So got to build up. So
Build up, not out.
it's yeah, it'll take a while. I last time you asked if I was happy, and the answer was I will be, and that's
And
still
then
the answer.
afterward, Em was like, I hate when people ask me that. And I was like, oops.
Well, only because I feel bad. I'm like I'm gonna bum you out with my awkward answer of no. But I when I have I think it's also like I can't see it yet in my head. So like when I see it, I'll be excited. But we haven't even figured out plans or anything. Allison's dad is coming at the end of the month. He's an architect. He's gonna help us. So
This is
um
the fun part. This is the Pinterest stage.
I
Come
know,
on,
but
lean into it.
I mean I'm going to when he gets here, but he's not here yet. So uh currently I'm still like technically if I wanted to, I have the keys and everything. I could just go over there and sit on the floor if I'd like. But
Oh,
it
that's what I would do. I used to do that all the time. I would like when we got the keys to our new place in LA, and I would just go sit there because why not? I live here now.
well that's true. But also there's no furniture or any comforts over there. So I would there's a TV. She left us TVs, which is nice. So
That's nice. That is nice.
yeah, Allison is more excited, but I think it's because I'm just overwhelmed at like all the little steps, and Allison is a task person, so it's easier for her to get over it. So I'm
Yeah, she's
hoping
like, I'm
to
calling the gardeners. I've already called. I've gotten 2 quotes on this, and I was like, girl,
oh,
what?
like okay, here's an example. And like everyone you can laugh at me, I don't care. But like I'm in my 30s. I never knew what it meant cuz I never had to. But like when people are like, "Oh, just call the city." I'm like, "What the fuck does that
Wait,
mean?" Do I just
what does that mean?
I don't know. Like things like that, like that I
I've
can't
never
even.
heard of such a thing.
Oh, I've been told that about 50,000 times in the last month. Like, "Oh, you just need to call the city." And I'm like, "How does everyone know the
Ugh,
number to the city?
that makes me
What's
mad. I feel like someone's
Burbank's number?"
holding out on me.
It feels so gatekeepy, but then also I'm like, maybe I'm supposed to know this and nobody's told
Well, if
me
it's any consolation, I have no idea what the fuck that means. So,
because, since we're trying to get permits and,
well,
figure out if we're
listen,
able to do things, we have to keep calling the city. I'm
we
like, what
had
the fuck does that
to
mean?
we have a historic district thing and the quote unquote city laws, and we were redoing a whole building and like changing the whole thing. So I know there were many calls made to probably the city, but I was like, that's not on me. Sorry, either
Blaze
Blaze
probably has
or
the city on
I
speed
think the
dial.
contractor had to do it. Actually, like I don't think that was on us. Like I think the
I,
contractor dealt
I
with
think it
that.
can be on the contractor, but I think we were being told if
Allison's
you want to
very
figure out.
excited. But Blaze
And
and I are not
and
phone
by the
people.
way,
She doesn't mind being on the phone. Blaze
she
and I both
obviously
don't.
knew how to call the city. She had no problem with that. I said, apparently we have to call the city. And she went, okay. And I'm like, do you just have their fucking number? Like,
Well,
how
I
do you,
wonder
do you
if it's
just
like a certain
get me Burbank?
department.
She's explained it to me and I still
Zoning?
don't totally understand.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, you call the city for zoning.
I typed in City of Burbank zoning, and there's a phone number. So I guess you just call what you Google it.
It's I'm sure it's that simple. And yet it's one of those things that immediately, um, because it's something that seems so simple to everybody else, and yet I had to like do the
Oh yeah, I'm
extra
not
step of
participating.
figuring it out, it's already like discouraging of like if I can't even if I don't know who to call, then how do I get anything done? So I'm sure it's fine, but it's all the tiny little steps that add up that I just get stressed out. And I'm like, I can't even I don't even know how to
I
make the
just
phone
well
call, let
that
alone
but see
build a
that's why you
house.
don't do that. You have a partner who is ready and willing and wants to do that. You're lucky. Blaze and I were like, you call, no you call, no you call. Like at least you have a partner who wants to. Blaze and I were just like, no, I just want to think about what color to paint the walls. That's about as far as I got, and it's still exciting to do that.
I don't know if she wants to, but she certainly
Oh, she
knows that,
seemed
and
pretty excited. She
she
was like,
certainly knows she
"I've got
has
these."
to.
She's like, "I've got multiple contractors coming. I'm so excited. I'm getting two different what do you call it, quotes." She's like, "I already spoke with the gardener. I've decided which trees I want to put where." I was like, "Girl, get it. I wish you could come to my house and help me because I need help."
No, she does seem on top of it. I know part of it is slight guilt because fun fact for everybody, the entire time that we were getting this house is when she was off the grid in the Amazon.
Lol.
So she did not really, with love, Allison, sorry, but she did not really participate at all because she just couldn't. She wasn't in the country or with internet access.
Or in the real
Um
world, in civilization. Yeah.
yeah, so I think this is her paying me back of like I did everything and now she's
Well,
like
she's always
I'm
seemed
on
to
it.
me like a very get it done kind of gal. I mean,
Mhm.
anytime
It
we had an issue
terrifies
at our
me.
dorm room or our apartment, Allison was like in the office, the leasing office, like laying down the law, and I was just hiding in the corner. So I feel like
Yeah.
she's definitely suited for this kind of activity, which I'm so happy for both of you that you have that because
Yeah,
it's not
look,
my strong suit.
I'll be really useful when it comes
Like, I'm
to
scared to hire from Thumbtack because I'm like, I don't want to talk to a stranger ever, even if it's through an app and they come to my house. I'm just such a chicken shit. Like, trust
I'll
me, I
be
get it. What I'm saying is, I get it. I'm like, I get it. But there's fun stuff to do besides that, like just like Pinterest.
I'll be really useful when it gets to like organizing and like once everything's in the house, I'll be really good. But the
Yeah,
I always thought like after playing so much Sims, I thought like I am prepared for this.
I
And
think maybe no.
go figure, Sims is not real life.
What?
Yeah, I got there's it's
Then
I'm not as prepared as I thought I
Who
was.
locked me in a room full of toilets?
I think you did that to yourself.
Oh, that was me. You're right. My bad.
Anyway, no, I'm glad that
Can somebody tell
the
me how to find a handy person? Sorry. As I'm asking, somebody on listeners help me find a therapist. So now I'm just thinking, can somebody help me figure out how to find a handy person? You know, a handyman is the generic term. That's fine. I don't know what's like appropriate, but like a handyman. Like I would just like somebody that I can text, right? And be like, "Hey, the baby gate on top of the stairs broke. Could you come fix it? We don't have time." Does somebody know how to do that? Is that
I
just on
feel like
Thumbtack?
if you live in Kentucky, I feel like there's a lot of dads out there who
I
just
know,
know
but
how
how
to
do I
do all that.
find that? Like, how do I like? I know they're around, but like, how do I link up with them?
Poster on a telephone pole? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Just go, help me. I
I've
need
done that.
help.
It doesn't work. I've tried that over and over again.
Oh, hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, well, if somebody has a recommendation like Thumbtack or like TaskRabbit or whatever, just let me know how this works.
Yeah,
Okay, bye.
well, same here. Same
I
here in
just come for
Burbank.
life advice.
I mean, I'm currently our handyman right now. His name is Jonathan, and he's not very good at his job, but he does better than what Allison and I could have pulled off.
That's kind of
So
what I want. Just somebody who can pop in and out and like it's just like understood like when you have a minute, can you come over and like fix this curtain rod, you know?
yeah,
I don't know.
I will miss that about apartment life. Just things
Yeah.
getting addressed quickly. But
Yeah, that's why I'm like maybe I need a handyman.
anyway, you let me
Anyway,
know because I also need a handyman.
I'm
So
assuming it's just on like Thumbtack question mark? I don't know. Now
I
I'm
don't
stressed
know.
out. I've lived here for 4 years. I'm like already stressed out. Uh okay. Just leave it to M to make everybody stressed out about something that we were all excited about 5 minutes ago.
We can all slowly build to excitement together because it once I at least have a floor plan, I'll get excited. But we don't even have that yet. So it's just
Mm.
like it's all just a a blob of like
And,
mystery.
now they have a lot fun fact, they have, like, apps and stuff. I was gonna say CD-ROMs. Oh my god, okay. They
Yuck.
have, like yuck! They have, like, apps and software where you can, I'm sure they have CD-ROMs, where you can take a
They
take
have
a
a Rosetta
picture.
Stone.
Yeah. You have to take the CD-ROM to your local library, and they're gonna look at you like, "What the fuck is that?" Where you can take a picture of your room, and then you can, like, change the walls and change the paint color. It's really fun, and, like, add
Yeah,
different furniture from different stores.
I've heard of those. I'm excited when I have walls, I will be very excited about that. But
Okay.
it'll just
You
take
have
time.
walls.
Not the part we're building. That's not the we're
Oh,
keeping
I know. I just mean the inside of the house, like the current house.
Oh yeah, we're not really doing anything to change anything in there.
Oh, okay, 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 okay.
It's just the garage that we're
I
turning
see.
into a whole
I see.
two-story building. That's
That's
gonna be a rough
well,
one.
that's gonna take some yeah, 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 yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad you got to see it because it was we were keeping it a secret for quite some time.
It's
So
beautiful, Em. I'm so proud of you.
and as time goes on, I will become more and more excited. So
I hope so, for your
stand
sake.
by.
It's fun.
I like to control things, and I currently feel out of control. That's all. So, all right. Why do you drink other than having a great Mother's Day? Do you got anything
Oh,
going on?
um, I have a weird rash. Does that count?
Where? It
Here,
matters
remember?
where. Oh, your arm. Yeah, I wanted it to be somewhere a little juicier. But
It's my inner elbow, and it's my left inner elbow. This is always where I get rashes when I'm allergic to something like red food coloring or if I eat too much citrus. So
you
I
need to get
don't
that
know.
checked out though. That's been around for like a week and a half now.
Oh, it's been around for like 2 months.
Girl, doctor. I know one number
Help
and it's
me!
911.
Help me! I don't understand. Like, no.
That's rough.
Thumbtack?
I think my the dad across the street in Kentucky.
Handyman?
I would type in allergist or something.
That's what Blaze said too, but like, I think it's like I think it's just dermatitis. Like, I think because I have it, I don't
Oh.
know. It happens every now and then. So I'm like, I think it's just I get these. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter. That's why I drink, I guess. Why do you drink?
I drink because we've done a lot recently behind closed doors,
Yes, you and I,
and
meaning, right?
yes, yes. And
What?
it's just no, I'm looking around at my room. I feel like the task list just goes on and on and on, and I can barely do one task. I can't even call the city. So I feel like
Okay, well, again, that feels like a big daunting thing that most of us probably can't do. So don't worry.
which like this brings me back to like why don't we have like classes in school that actually teach you how to do things like that? Because
fucking men.
I feel like such a dummy, and like I'm living an experience that is very common.
But I
But
think
like
we're
I
all
still feel like
doing
a
that.
dummy.
Like we're all winging it. Like nobody really knows. Everyone just thinks everyone else knows.
Yeah, although Allison really made it seem like she knew. So
Well, it's
it really hurt
Allison.
my
That's
feelings.
different. She just went to the Amazon by herself for 2 weeks. That's not
I
the
don't know how I
average
ended up.
person,
I don't know how I ended up with someone so capable, but
because she's capable, and it's like, oh, what a good match. So she can do that weird, hard red tape stuff that we don't know how to do.
well, so anyway, we're going through you and me, we've been doing a lot behind closed doors, and now I feel like now that I'm back, I was like, oh, I can take a little rest, but no. It's only just begun. So I'm just I think I'm going to get myself a fun little treat later, and then I'm going to crack into it. But the reason I drink in a good way is that later I will have a fun little treat.
I'm
But
so proud of
later,
you.
after that, I will have to work all night. But that's okay
Whew.
because I'll have
Yeah.
my FLT.
Honestly, that's the way it works. I'm proud of you.
And speaking of Mother's Days, update on Lil Leona. What's she up to these days? What's her favorite color? What's her favorite snack?
Yellow and Sesame Street cereal bars.
Great. And what's your favorite color these days, according to her?
According to her, it's red, and I don't think I've kind of had to I've kind of had to just acknowledge and accept the fact that I won't ever be able to change my own favorite color.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just been so ingrained. It's almost like I've been brainwashed
Mm-hmm.
into thinking it's my favorite color. So it's like she's creating my reality now. So whatever.
Does she have a favorite prank these days? A favorite gag? Like she was all about
Oh,
slippery mountain or whatever it was called.
Wobbly
What's it?
Mountain.
Wobbly mountain.
Oh, I
What is she?
posted a cute picture of Leona and me all dressed up, and somebody said, "The Queen and Princess of Wobbly Mountain."
Precious.
I
That
think
is
I'm the
precious.
princess because Leona's the queen
Of course.
of course. She loves to try to run away toward a dangerous thing
So do you.
because she thinks it's very funny.
Mommy daughter date.
I know, right? I'm like, wow, this is very familiar. When I was little, I used to play that fun game with my parents.
Give her a fake social security card and just see what happens.
See what happens. Yeah. Yesterday I gave her a piece of bread, like with like butter and jam on it or something. And I was like, oh, do you want to dance with me? And like she was eating it. She's like, sure. And she just literally, it was like unbelievable, like slow motion, just chucked it. And it like flew through the air, landed face down. She didn't even like look. And I was like, Leona, you just like chucked that onto the floor. And I look over and she's like shaking her butt. And I'm like, well, okay, this is my life. Why am I even fighting
Yikes.
it? Yeah.
Well, okay, great. Sounds like she's doing good.
Yeah, she's having fun.
Well, happy Mother's Day. And
Thank you.
I'm glad you had fun. I also had fun. I didn't have to do anything. But Allison
Delightful.
hung out with my mom. So
Oh, how
again,
did that happen?
she's in DC right now.
Oh,
Allison is.
I didn't
Yeah.
know. Okay, great.
She's gone for
See,
another
she's
2
taking
weeks.
all the hard work off your hands.
I know she spent Mother's Day with my mom. I just get
Damn.
to max and relax over
Just
here.
veg out, eat a fun little treat,
I will actually.
and you deserve it.
Okay. I'm ready to tell you a story because I'm noticing that we hit our 20-minute mark and I don't want to lose the audience.
I love this arbitrary mark that you've created, but
I push it like 5 more minutes every year. So.
Oh, great.
And here's another thing for why I drink is that I don't remember doing these notes because we were supposed to do this episode a long, long time ago, and then I had to get a whole new laptop. So this is out of my memory. I officially don't know what's going on. So we're gonna learn together today. This is so fun. Now this is the story of the drumroll. No, okay, Hannah House.
Hannah House. What's that?
Well, let me tell you, Chris.
What you made me do a drum roll, and then you're like, anyway, here's a thing you've never heard of.
I had you drum roll for the mystery because we're gonna dive in together. So, my first note from Past M says, in 1858, this house was built for the Indiana state legislator Alexander Hanna. So that's where we get the name Hannah.
Okay.
Fun. This is a mansion with 24 rooms, all of which apparently have fireplaces.
Oh.
That's a lot of chimneys. Or do you think they just all kind of web into one?
Yeah, I think they meet in one. That would be hilarious if a house had 21 chimneys on
it. Yeah, the fire hazard's insane. I mean, think about the fire hazard of houses back then, where like everyone has to survive off of fireplaces. Like, how were people
Okay, but there's nobody's wearing polyester, so that's a plus.
In a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways. That's the only bonus I have. I don't really know.
I'm just surprised
I guess
that
people
just
knew how to
houses
deal
weren't...
with fire, though. Like, I think people were like more apt to deal with a fireplace. Like nowadays, I'd probably be like, I can figure this out and watch a YouTube video and then like blow up my home, you know?
I guess that's true. And also like fires back then maybe were even less often than now because now we have electrical fires. Like maybe...
Oh, yes, true. Yes, true.
So maybe theirs was just, if it's not happening near the chimney, it's not happening anywhere.
And I think it was a necessity. Like that's how they warmed themselves when it was
cold,
but
that's what I'm saying. Like you would think if there's constantly a fire to warm yourself, you would think there would be more fires, like accidental fires. But
I think there probably might have been. I don't know, though. I don't know.
Historians weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Arsonists weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you.
The mansion had 24 rooms and thus maybe 24 chimneys. It also had a 2-story kitchen, which think of the sandwiches you could store in there.
Oh, but think about how much work it would be to make a fucking sandwich if you left the mayonnaise upstairs.
The mayonnaise would just have to rot up there on the counter. I would never go back.
Sure does. Forget it.
And the house had multiple parlor rooms and sitting rooms. And now this is where I obviously did a mini deep dive, and I wanted to ask you if you knew the difference between parlor rooms and sitting rooms.
No, I don't.
Great. I'm looking, and I don't think I figured it out either. Okay, so
Congratulations. We both don't know.
according to Reddit, well, there are drawing rooms. Do you know what a drawing room is?
I
Because
know
my
what
thought is this
I
is
know
where you
what
would sketch.
Amelia Bedelia thought, which
Yeah,
is drawing.
Amelia Bedelia, because apparently I
Drawing the
think the same thing.
curtains? I don't know.
Okay, so apparently I really fully Amelia Bedelia. I thought, oh, it must be the sunniest room because that's where you can sketch or something. Like it's like the brightest room. So this is where you do all
Mhm.
your art. Apparently it's where you withdraw.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. And
I did
apparently
not know
it's
that.
for special guests only. So it's a small
Oh,
offshoot
it's like
room.
you're invited into, like, to have a cigar in the drawing room.
Yeah, so like if you're having a party, you can go up to someone who you want to speak more one-on-one with, and you can take
Oh.
them into the drawing room so you can withdraw from
And
the
you can be
party
like,
and
"I
have
have a
privacy.
McClellan's batch
Oh,
800 Louis the 14th Scotch whiskey if you'd like some," you
I
know?
have an ice cold Nesquik waiting for you if you want to follow
Oh,
me into the
shit.
drawing
Is it
room.
strawberry?
It's whatever you want it to be. It's
Oh, fuck yeah.
imaginary.
Oh,
But yes,
well.
you got it.
Thanks for living in the fantasy with me, Em. Not.
As long as you don't say banana, you're still invited to the drawing room.
Well, that was my next. I'll just keep my mouth shut then.
That's right. Okay, so a sitting room is a modern living room. It was, or I guess it was their version of a living room. So it was a leisure space for casual guests.
To sit.
So anyone could come to the sitting room.
Gotcha.
And people are probably hanging out in the sitting room, whether or not guests are there.
Gotcha.
Now, apparently there's a whole other room called a mourning room, and not mourning like sad, because my first thought was a funeral parlor.
Oh,
All
sure,
houses
sure.
had funeral parlors in them. But no, this is like a mourning, like good morning
In
room.
the morning. Okay.
And it was what I thought a drawing room was, and it is the sunniest room in the
Oh,
morning.
because you're getting up and you're having your tea or coffee in the morning room. Okay.
I don't know the difference between a morning room and a day room, and I also don't know the difference between a day room and a sunroom. So we've really
For
got a lot to
God's
work
sake. I mean, it's like not. Imagine the percentage of people back then who actually had all these rooms was so small. You know what I mean? Like any of us who lived past lives during that time probably never even went inside a drawing room because,
with.
like,
I know.
we wouldn't have had access to that. So it's just a wild thought. Like now we have to learn about it. We never even got to use it.
Well, also, like, how many of these rooms were actually synonymous, or were they really, truly different rooms?
Right?
Because,
Is it like they served different purposes during the day, like throughout the day? So like you would change the name of it from like the
Mhm.
morning room to the parlor, or is it like literally a separate room? So
And
many
also, like,
questions.
is there a house out there that had one of each? Because this place had 24 rooms, and it's only saying it had sitting rooms and parlors. You couldn't find room for a fucking morning room.
Like,
One
are
out of
there
24
20
wasn't the sunniest.
Right? Are there like 20 bedrooms? Like explain yourself to me.
Yeah. So apparently there's a morning room. I don't know how that compares to other things. Architects, weigh in. Thank you. Allison's dad, weigh in. So
Handyman, weigh in, I guess.
Kentucky
Arsonist?
fathers, weigh
don't know.
in. So the thing that I said was sitting rooms and parlor rooms. So the sitting room, like I said, is the old version of a living room.
Right.
The parlor room is the one that's a symbol of status. It's the best room in the house, and it's where you go with guests to make good impressions.
So it's like the fancy living room. Like in the
Yeah.
90s when people would put like plastic on the couches and you weren't allowed to go into that room.
Like the room that a lot of houses had when I was growing up, where it was like a room. Everyone had a room you don't sit in, and everyone
You
had a
don't
room you
wear
don't
your
eat
shoes
in.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Don't eat
room
on
you
the
don't
couch
sit
in
in
there.
is the parlor. Although what's so interesting is I guess that would also be a sitting room because it was just a bunch of fancy furniture you weren't allowed to sit on. So I guess it's not a sitting room.
No, it's a parlor because it's for fancy only.
My mom always called it the phone room because that was where she sat to talk to people on the phone.
Oh!
That was its only purpose.
That's creative.
Speaking of which, there's one piece of furniture I want so badly for this house that I got. And I can't get it in this house because we just don't have enough room. But I want you to know, in a dream world where I could expand the square footage, the first thing I would be purchasing is a gossip bench, which I'm wondering if they
What?
used to be in parlors. Gossip benches, like the chairs with a table attached to them. So like you would put
Oh, I
like
don't
your
know about
telephone on
this.
it. Oh, look up gossip benches.
I mean, I'm
So
so in.
so they were like low benches with a table on it, and that's where you would
Oh.
keep your telephone and your phone books.
Oh,
There was
my
like
mom
usually a
has one of
little
these,
you'd put your
like a really
little
antique one,
mhm.
and she
It
has
was where
the
you would
rotary
gossip.
phone on it.
Yep. So I want one very badly just so I have a reason to gossip.
Oh, they're not that big. You could, it's just like it's a teeny little thing.
Yeah, I we'll see how the rest of the house pans out first, but if I can squeeze my way into one, I will find it.
I'm already on
Um
Victorian gossip bench eBay.
I want they also make like modern looking gossip benches, which is super fun, which is also kind of ironic
Oh
because
yeah,
nobody needs
Wayfair
it.
sells a lot.
But that's all I want. And I like to think that would be in the parlor, but maybe not because the parlor's classy and the gossip bench wouldn't be classy.
It depends on what
Hmm.
kind of gossip.
Oh, yeah, you're right. About the
Mm,
queen. You could put a gossip bench in there for the queen.
for sure, she would love
Okay.
that.
Anyway, the house has a lot of rooms. That's where we got. The house also has later got an addition that had a summer kitchen because the 2-story kitchen wasn't enough, a wash house, a smoke house, and a milk cooling room. Bitch, that's a fridge. But okay, sure, milk cooling room.
A
Um,
milk cooling room.
that's what I'm gonna call my
It feels like
refrigerator
something the
for now.
Kardashians like have for
Yes.
like their protein powder or something. Like, oh, it's just like a keeps it dry and it keeps a perfect amount of moisture. It's like, oh my god,
It
why?
does sound like something Kris Jenner would put in her immaculate kitchen.
Something like unnecessary. Yeah.
So that the house was built in 1858, and this was for Alexander Hanna. He was born in the 1820s, and he became a harness maker, which again blows my mind what you could do back then. So he was a harness maker. He moves to California during the gold rush for a little bit. He ends up owning a ranch, and then he moves back to Indiana and works for the railroad. There's one source that said his dad was the president of the railroad, where that feels as similar to me as like Call the City, but
It does.
some other sources said that his dad just worked alongside him. So I don't know if he worked for his dad or with his dad, but he ended up back in Indiana at the railroad.
Okay.
A year after the house was or the year the house was built, Hannah bought the property to build the house. He bought 240 acres. I don't know what you need with that much acreage, but okay. He apparently also bought this from his dad. So I like to think his dad probably actually was the president of a whole
It sounds
railroad
like
to be
it.
able
Yeah.
to own that much land.
Yeah.
He builds his house. All the brick, fun fact, cost only $585 for
Okay.
a 24-room mansion. $585.
Oh my gosh.
He started farming again, and he started using, and because remember he co-owned that ranch, so now he's built the house. He starts farming on this new acreage he just bought, using quote the newest scientific techniques in agriculture. So
Ooh.
obviously, I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" And so I decided to look up the the newest hip happening scientific techniques in 1860s agriculture, and this apparently. This is from ThoughtCo. The early 1860s witnessed a dramatic change from hand power to horses, which historians characterize
Um,
as the first American agricultural revolution.
okay.
And then the USDA says that this was also when commercial corn and wheat belts were developed.
Ooh la
Okay.
la.
And in 1862, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they established the Homestead Act, which gave free land to willing farmers.
I
This was
remember this. I remember this from AP history.
yeah, so this was when sharecropping was replacing slavery.
Yep.
And Alexander was an abolitionist, okay, and he allegedly used his basement to help hide enslaved people running away.
Oh
And so
wow.
he actually used his property as a allegedly. We don't know. There's no documents because I guess why would you
Why would you?
document
Right.
this and get in trouble? But allegedly, his house and especially his basement was a stop on the Underground Railroad.
Okay, great. I mean, if
Um,
that's true, that's pretty kick-ass.
yeah. So in 1872, he ends up marrying a woman named Elizabeth. They only have one child. Apparently, her name was also Elizabeth. And the legend, if you look up a bunch of like sites, most of them will tell you that the baby was stillborn, but
Oh.
the truth is that she was born alive but died 2 days later, I think from
Oh,
complications.
the baby
Um,
Elizabeth?
the baby, yeah.
Oh no.
So that's the main crux of the story is that he got married, only had one child, and the
Sad.
child didn't survive. So there's a family plot that they're all now at, including the baby. And Alexander was later in the Indiana General Assembly. At different times, he was a postmaster and a sheriff.
Oh
It's
my.
giving ADHD. And he also worked for, again, a toll road. So he went from a railroad to a toll road. It was the first toll road in their area. He collected tolls from people passing through, which I feel like in my mind, that at the time when like I don't really think of highways as a thing, in the 1800s, I just feel he's like standing on a dirt road and he just like stops people and he's like,
He's
I
just
would
like
like
has
a
a
nickel.
bag. Yeah. He's like,
He's like,
you owe me. Like
it's
for
very like
what? Just
trust me,
trust
bro.
me.
Yeah,
Trust me.
it's like trust me. I work for somebody else, and you need to pay before you can go any
It
further
may
on
or
this
may not be my
cobblestone path.
dad who's the president of the road. But either way, you owe me a nickel. Just keep moving.
Just keep it moving. Keep it moving. So, fun fact though, the road that he would collect tolls on is now one of the major streets in the area. It's still near his house, and it is called Hannah Avenue. So,
Okay, well, okay, so literally his dad might have been the fucking president. Who knows?
of all
Of Hannah
roads,
Road,
maybe.
yeah, or maybe all the roads. Who knows?
So in the 1880s, 1890s, Elizabeth and Alexander both die, but the house ends up being taken up by a jewelry businessman,
Mm.
a jeweler, I suppose. And this guy's name, his name is Roman, and his wife Marie. They buy the house after the Hannahs die.
Did you say? Sorry, what year was that? They move in
1890s.
1890s. Okay.
They end up living in this house until the 60s. Or no,
Wow.
sorry, Roman and Marie buy it. Their daughter ends up taking over the house and she
Gotcha.
lives there through the 60s. So it's in the family through the 60s. And the mansion was then vacant but owned by another guy named David. And never mind. I was going to make a stupid joke. So
I heard it, I felt it, and I just let it happen, and then it was like, never mind, it got stopped in its tracks.
Yeah, I was like, it's time to just keep it going. So
Good for you.
in 1968, a couple named the O'Briens, they moved in, and I think they were. So it was owned by the Hannahs, then it was owned by Roman and his wife Marie, then it was owned by David, although it was vacant at the time. So I think the next family, the O'Briens, rented while David owned it.
I
So
see.
it gets kind of complicated because I kept seeing David and then the O'Briens.
Like,
And I
there's
think,
owners who are leasing it out.
yeah,
Right.
it overlapped, but I think they just rent. So they moved in, the O'Briens did, in 68, and they opened it as an antique store downstairs in the mansion, but then they lived upstairs. And they were the first
Ooh.
ones to actually encounter spirits there.
Oh.
Probably because they were messing up the house so much by making it into an antique store.
Yeah, they're
you know?
like, this is the parlor and the sitting room, and you're turning it into an antique room. What are you doing? They probably messed it
Yeah.
all up.
Yeah. So I feel like, and also the house at this point was already like over 100 years old. So now you're in
Right.
like a centenarian house that's now an antique store. Like, talk about the spirits you're bringing in.
Oofa doofa.
So the people who owned the house, they wanted to get the house on the National Registry of Historic Places, so they started fundraising.
Mm.
So they started holding parties there, including murder mystery dinners. They started doing like
Ooh.
music performances, Easter egg hunts. They had flea markets there and art shows, and it was like a wedding venue. They even had a haunted house in the house,
Oh
which
my.
is like so meta, a haunted house in a haunted house.
I mean, places do that. Think about like Waverly, or those places where it's like
Yeah.
already haunted, and then they're like, or Queen Mary, and then they're like,
You're totally right.
and now we have dead bodies hanging from the ceiling. It's like, oh,
Ha, ha, ha.
did you need that? It feels like there was already
like-
enough, but
Yeah,
whatever.
there was already enough corpses here at some
Yeah,
point, so we're
yikes.
good. But for the murder mystery parties, excuse me, heartburn, yikes. Okay. The scariest thing I'll talk about today. For the murder mystery parties, / Halloween haunted house things, they apparently go so far as to build a secret passageway into the house. And I say this now because a lot of people apparently go to this house and say, like, this house is super creepy. Even when the family lived here, there was a secret passageway. And, like, so just to shut it down now, if you ever go, the secret passageway was intentionally built for the creep
An
factor.
addition. I see. Okay, okay, okay. That's interesting because I mean, I guess that could get complicated with the Underground Railroad rumor or lore about it. Like maybe there was a secret entrance that was used, I feel like those can get conflated really easily if it already has like this kind of Underground Railroad story behind it. So it's good to know that
Um,
that's not part of it.
yeah, no, that's, oh yeah, totally. I didn't even think about that element.
Yeah.
I will tell you to, you already know the answer to this. There is one thing I am very excited about already for the house.
For your house.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what
Yes,
it
I
is?
do. Yes, I do know. Of course I know.
Say it.
Okay. M and L are creating a okay, so I'm allowed to talk about it? I feel like it's like
Yeah,
off the record.
it's not a panic room. Yeah.
Are creating a panic room, but it's
No.
actually called it's called a Spookeasy, okay?
Mhm.
And it's like this kind of little annex off the main hallway, and what they're gonna do is put a secret passageway in the door so that you get to enter into the Spookeasy with the secret door, secret passageway. I'm so excited. And apparently their contract or their realtor's husband already like makes that was like his COVID project was learning how to make secret passageways. So they were
Mhm.
like, "Perfect, we're in." Oh
Yeah,
man.
we're
Oh
doing
man.
it's well, because I love my apothecary stuff. Allison's like one big hobby is mixology,
Yeah.
and we both love the Halloween vibe. And we've honestly, if we could pick a dream house, we would have gotten like the creepiest Victorian mansion possible. Like that's the dream. And so since we live in Los Angeles, tough house to find.
Yeah, that's why I
Um
moved halfway across this damn country. I was like, I can't give
it's
up on my dreams.
Well, so now we're like, let's compromise on, reality. And we'll make one room look like you're inside of spooky Victorian
I
mansion,
mean,
and it will be
genius.
our apothecary bar.
And like you
Allison can
guys,
have
that'll
her
be
whole
perfect because you
space.
guys are so good at like, or you especially with your prop history, just so good at designing everything to be just right. I'm really excited about it.
It's also somehow being shared as Allison's office, so we're gonna have to figure out
Oh
like
yeah.
curtain tracks or something so it gets hidden. Because right now, if she were to go on Zoom and be inside a haunted bar, it will look not great
Okay,
for
but
her corporate job.
as Al said, it just blur the background. It's easy.
You just put it in the
That's
background.
why that exists. So many people live in like studios in New York and stuff and have like, things
That's
in the
true.
background. Yeah. So don't worry
Anyway,
about
yes,
that.
I'm very excited about my secret passageway, and I'm very excited about
Me too.
retiring to the Spookeasy every night.
Oh God.
Um,
I can't wait till you walk in and I'm in there. I'm like, I needed a drink. I
well,
flew
we're
out
trying
here.
to turn it into like a mini tavern with like a whole like tabletop and chairs, so that way
It's
people
gonna
can
be
come be there.
perfect. I'm gonna be there. See
I
you soon.
know.
See you soon. I know.
uh, so anyway, oh yeah, secret passageway. So people think it has a creepier origin to it than it does, and that's not the case.
Okay.
But so many people have said that, as they're constantly coming through, that activity has increased ever since they started doing renovations for the Halloween
Mm.
space and the murder mysteries. And in 1878, the owners finally got what they wanted and put the house it was a historical landmark and put on the registry. And in 1980, the mansion was also used as a haunted house for preservation funding.
Mm.
And through that, paranormal activity also grew. So I think it's just, I don't know if it's like mocking the house or just so many people are coming in with like vulnerable, they're ready to be kind
Yeah.
of scaredy cats, and that's allowing things to
And
open up.
probably like stirring stuff up, just even asking it to come out and
Hmm.
asking to interact with it and stuff.
And the Hannah House is now also rented out for social events, I guess, or it was for a time period.
Cool.
Now investigators are some of the main tourists here. The owner has even hosted events here on National Paranormal Day, where like a bunch of investigators all come out at once.
Ooh.
And investigators can actually book the location, and the house offers haunted tours, overnight investigations. At one point, I don't know if it was because they were so desperately trying to bring people in so that way they could get more funding, but they
Right.
like wanted people to ghost hunt here, and they were trying to like sell it to people as, if you go ghost hunting here, we will give you free pizza. So
Oh, okay. I mean, fuck it. I'm in.
I mean, if you've got a summer kitchen and a 2-story kitchen, why not
Why
throw some
not?
pizza down in there?
Summer kitchen. Do you know how much talk about Nesquik? That milk cooling room is probably just full of Nesquik strawberry and banana just for me.
Oh, you know what? I hope it's being put to use, or I hope it was put to use in good ways other than just cooling milk. You got to get adventurous if you're going to build a whole room for cooling. You know, you got to be able to.
You got to multi-purpose that,
I would also suggest that if it's going to be hot there every now and then, maybe it's just a human cooling room. It feels like,
Oh, good
because if they
call. You
didn't
could just hang out in there.
if they didn't have air conditioning back then, they only had one cold room.
Very
Wouldn't you
good
just
point.
like, oh, and milk happens to be here?
Very
Like, that's what I would think.
just ignore the milk. That's not part of it.
Yeah, it would be air conditioned rooms featuring milk.
Damn.
That's a dream room for me.
That is actually I kind of hate it, but good for you.
And I've never seen a place like desperately want people to go ghost hunting that they'll also fund pizza for you. That sounds like a Chuck E. Cheese event for adults
It
if I've
sure
ever seen one.
does. My dream.
Now, here's a fun thing that I put in there. Past M was wise, because I have a fun fact in here that says, fun fact about the Hannah House, the first ever horror comedy soap opera was shot here.
What?
It was called Creeporia. It is on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
It is bad.
What?
It is not good.
When was it from?
I don't know when it was from, but it feels like early 2000s.
Oh my.
And allegedly it was developed by the same guy. His name's John Semper Jr. This guy like wrote for shows like Smurfs and Fraggle Rock and Rugrats and Spider-Man and DuckTales. Like, so like he had a really good resume, and then I saw Creeporia, and now I'm kind of like judging like what he was about.
He flew too close to the sun.
I feel like maybe his own kids were in it, and he was like, "Oh, I guess I'll help." And it's just not good.
It's not good.
If you
Okay.
want something to cringe at, you can go
Ooh.
watch Creeporia. Another fun fact is one of the portraits above the mantle here is a post-mortem portrait of a child.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Her name is Hazel. She was apparently related to some of the owners of the house. So she's not
Aw.
even like someone who died in this house. They just the owners happened to find it in their own attic and then thought it was creepy enough to just put in this haunted house. So and apparently her eyes had to be drawn into the portrait
Oh,
because
God.
they were closed.
Oh God.
And people say her eyes that were drawn into the portrait follow you when you walk around the room. So that's the first potential ghost thing that happens there, or people are reading into it.
Don't love that.
As for that, because Hazel did not die in the house, but the people who did die in the house, one was Alexander Hanna himself. He apparently had a heart attack in the house. Then Marie, who was one of the people who owned the house after him. And again, the Hannah's baby died from complications in the house.
Elizabeth.
Yeah. They were the main deaths, or the main deaths here are when it was part of the Underground Railroad.
Mhm.
So you've got those three, and then the main deaths during the Underground Railroad, where allegedly 7 to 8, they think, their best guess is 7 to 8 enslaved people were hiding in the basement one night, and someone tipped over the oil lamp, and the basement caught on fire, and they were stuck in the basement. They were either trapped or they were too afraid to run. But they all died, and somehow it was actually from smoke inhalation and not the fire itself. I think I don't even ever really realize how often smoke inhalation is actually the cause of death.
Yeah.
And so their best guess is just under 10 people. When Alexander came back to check on them, they assumed he was either at work or in his house, and he just didn't know what was going on. When it happened and he saw all these people had passed in his home because they were runaways, he couldn't tell anyone what happened. And so part of the legend is that he ended up burying what was left of them in that basement where they died.
Oh.
And now the basement is concreted over, so there's no way to know, I guess. And there's
I
still no
guess you can use
document of it.
ground penetrating radar.
I guess so. But there's no, unless they do that, there's no documentation of this. It's just a story. And like not that you hope that happened to people, but you hope no one's faking that story either.
Yeah, it's almost like I hope it's not real because what a horrifying tale. Like,
yeah.
maybe it just got blown out of proportion from another story, or it just like built up some sort of lore over time. I don't know. That's sad.
The only evidence that does exist is that near the property there are partially collapsed tunnels that nobody originally knew about, and so it suggested that there really was an underground railroad pass or point.
Oh wow.
Checkpoint
Okay.
through that area. So we don't know, but
Right.
it's told enough that it's become part of the house's legend.
Damn.
And now, just for the ghosts, people here have heard huge crashes, like breaking glass in the basement, and when they check, nothing has happened. And I should mention too, some of the jars in the basement, because there's a whole wall that still looks like someone is canning goods there,
Mm.
and they're from like one of the original owners of the house. Like and they've also passed away, so like their own canned goods are still just sitting on the shelves.
Whoa.
Yeah. So anyway, people hear huge crashes like breaking glass down there, and then there's nothing that has gone amiss. Silverware will fly across the room. Pictures will swing on the walls by themselves. Doors will open and close even when they're locked, or when they're left locked. The O'Briens, who created they lived there and also turned it into an antique museum or an antique shop. Their daughter, I guess, moved in at one point. Or the family moved in and brought their daughter when she was very young, and she would talk to somebody on the stairs, and she said that he looked grandfatherly and called him dad.
Ah!
Like in front of her own dad. Like,
rude.
But so she would just talk to, and then I hope they just never brought that kid back to the house. So.
I hope so also.
People hear voices and footsteps, and I feel like I always name an episode where I don't say voices and footsteps at some point. But people also hear rustling clothing as if someone is moving around the house. People feel cold drafts. Other doors and windows are seen opening and closing. People hear loud scratching from inside the walls. Electronics will turn on and off by themselves, including the stereo, which has been known to play music. And then I guess the ghosts don't like the music, and they just like pull the fucking cord. They're like, nope,
yeah, they're like, "Where's
no
my
music.
phone? Where's my old timey?" I don't know.
If
what
you're
they
not
listen
dancing to the Charleston, it's not music.
Yeah,
That's what they're saying.
exactly. You get it.
People smell cigar smoke in some of the rooms, and they smell roses in others, which is interesting because it's kind of all coming back to me. As I was looking up the sitting rooms versus parlor rooms thing, it would have made sense for the house to have a parlor room for men and a parlor room for women, because they apparently men and women didn't sit in the same rooms together.
Yeah.
So, if some rooms smell like cigars and some smell like roses, it could be that they were separate parlor rooms. Some people have also smelled candles, but here's the thing. They say they smell candles, but really they smell candles being blown out like sulfur. And they also smell rotting flesh, which is very demonic. My guess with the candles and sulfur is that they're actually smelling the fire.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Because of this rotting flesh smell, I feel like this is something I would throw in as like a true or false, and it would obviously be a throwaway false. But apparently this is an actual factoid of the house. Because it's so known for smelling like rotting flesh, there's a rumor that this house is nicknamed throughout town as the house that reeks of death.
Whoa! Wait, there's a rumor that is called that? Or
I'm saying it's a rumor because I saw it on actually like weirdly too many sources, but I still can't really believe it. So I'm like, okay, it has to be a rumor. That can't be real.
No,
but
apparently I feel like that's probably they call it that.
Maybe okay. Well, then
People
the
call
house
things
is
weirder
called
words.
the house is called the house that reeks of death.
Jesus. Like, let me see what happens if have you ever just typed in the house that reeks of what? Death?
Of death.
It said cat pee. Is that what you want to look up? I'm like, maybe
not.
Oh, okay, maybe not. It's not coming up.
Type in Indiana though.
No, so apparently I could not find anything about it. So who knows?
Oh, okay. Well,
You might be
now I'm
onto
going to go back to saying rumor.
Yeah, I think you're
Okay.
onto something. Yeah.
So, One news crew came out, and the staff in the dining room, they said, wouldn't it be wild if the camera crew caught the room's chandelier swinging?
Wouldn't it be
Like, oh,
wild?
while you're in here, wouldn't it be so silly if you saw the chandelier swinging?
Silly.
And then it happened. As soon as they said it, they were like, oh,
Ooh, we should try that more
someone's
often.
listening. Wouldn't it be so
Wouldn't
silly
it be
if
so silly?
there was like a demonic possession? Wouldn't that be so silly? Crews also, the same crew, sorry, the same news crew that came in and got the chandelier, they also witnessed a portrait lifting off the nail in the wall and fall to the ground. You and I can attest to that.
Yeah.
We have seen that as well.
Certainly have.
And the attic is apparently the most haunted. Some people have actual trouble getting in there without feeling really sick and like they shouldn't be there.
Oh.
Some say the darkest energy in the house is up there and shadows will peek around corners at you. Some of the staff is just afraid to go to the attic. They won't even mess with it. And what's weird is there isn't anything that's happened historically up there. So we don't know what happened for there to be such a dark energy up in the attic. In the basement, there are apparitions of enslaved people, shadows hiding, and which is so sad.
That's
if it's
horrible.
shadows hiding,
Horrible.
as if they're like they still think they have to hide.
Mm-hmm.
And a woman, presumably Elizabeth, his wife, is seen looking out the window and sometimes pacing the porch. People have said that they're just standing on the stairs and looking out the windows, and there's just a woman hanging out on the porch, and they assume she's just another person visiting the house. People driving by have claimed to see a man walking around in the front yard and sometimes even riding a pony.
Whoa!
And it's just like clear as day, I guess. And they're like, "Oh, look at that man riding a pony in the front yard."
My God.
And it's
full
actually
body
supposedly
apparition of a pony too.
I know. What did the
That's
pony
kinda
do?
fun.
He should be fun.
Well,
for
I hope
him.
it's just a what do you call it? Residual, like maybe image. You know, that's what I tell myself.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's true. That's true. On the stairs, people have seen a man who we think is Alexander. He's in an old-fashioned black suit, and he is sporting some really thick mutton chops on his head, apparently.
Ooh.
And he fades away on the stairs after you see him. Now, I have bolded the word mutton chops, which tells me in my notes I have something to say about mutton chops.
I can't wait.
Oh, here we go. Okay. I love past M because it literally says note for mutton chops. Tried to look up history of it, found nothing, but did find fun fact about sideburns.
I was gonna
look at me
say,
go.
yeah, Burnsides, General Burnsides, right?
Okay, well that was the fun.
Sorry,
fact. Yes.
I thought we all learned that in history class. I thought I was getting an A+ on my test.
Well, you are the teacher's pet currently, where everyone's like, "Boo! We didn't even get to hear the prompt."
I'm sorry. You can cut it.
No. But yes, apparently sideburns were originally called Burnsides because of the Union General Ambrose Burnside, and he wore that as a hairstyle.
Unique facial hairstyle, yeah.
So yes, there's my fun fact. There's your fun fact. So when the O'Briens lived here, they saw Alexander standing on the stairs. Also, he had his mutton chops, and he would just walk around upstairs. He like just kind of having his own day, and they would also hear voices so often that they just started yelling at him to stop. They were like, "You're pissing me off." They would hear moaning, whispering, mumbled voices from empty rooms, like apparently so loudly they couldn't even watch TV at night, and that's what really set them off.
Well, that's infuriating.
I know. People have gotten grabbed and pushed. They have gotten pictures of clear as day figures, which actually I watched a YouTube video of one of the tour guides there, and she showed a picture of her phone where it was by the secret passageway. And there's a full ass person in the picture. And she was like, "Nope, nobody was in this room."
Ooh.
Weird lights appear in the basement. Staff have a hard time breathing and sometimes even feel overwhelmed in certain rooms, like overwhelming emotions. Usually the whole house has welcoming vibes, and in the main areas at least, and it's said that in the main areas it's more feminine energy, but the basement and the attic feel very different. They feel very intense. There was a movie called Witch House which filmed here, and the crew kept hearing kids running around upstairs, and they thought someone brought their kid to work, I guess. So they kept saying whoever brought the kids, they need to leave, and
Shut
nobody
up.
had brought kids. But imagine being the sound guy and your whole job is to get clear audio and you
Oh,
just keep hearing. Because, I mean, if you have the big headphones on and you're listening in real time, you're probably hearing EVPs in real time and
oh.
nobody else can hear the footsteps. And he's just like, can you get these kids out of here? And everyone's like, what the fuck
Like,
are you
what are you
talking
even
about?
talking about?
Um, Women are heard humming in the halls. And when you ask for it to happen again, people have gotten knocking on the walls. There are
Blech.
EVPs such as this is just the EVPs impress me. I feel like all of them are like full
Really
sentences.
long.
Yeah. So one of the EVPs people have gotten is can you get out of here? Yikes. Um
Okay.
Another one is help me, which is so sad.
Oh.
Another one is hey Rob, and Rob apparently used to work at the house.
Hey, Rob.
Hey Rob. And then another one is can't you feel me?
Ew, ew, ew. That means they're up close. Oh, no.
That means they want you to feel them too.
Oh, no,
Ugh.
no, 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 no.
Um on the show, okay, oh, this is I did have a note about this too. The Paranormal Files is a show on YouTube. They did a pretty incredible job at this house, but it was a 2-hour YouTube show. I did not watch all of it. I only watched a chunk of it, but the chunk that I watched was really good. If you are someone who is like cleaning today, or if you've got like chores going on in the background, you want to put something on your TV, watch the Hannah House episode of the Paranormal Files on YouTube because it's 2 hours of really good stuff.
Oh, I'm going to watch that too.
Its equipment was freaking out the entire time. Almost all of it came through from intelligent responses. Their Ovilus said Manitoba, which they, I
Manitoba.
guess, so one of the next stops, I guess, on the Underground Railroad after this was getting to Canada, getting to.
Whoa.
Their Ovilus also said, we live in the shadows.
Ooh.
It also said, there's evil everywhere.
Ooh.
They got a lot of yes or no responses from the REM pod, and the Ovilus even said yes a lot, like just openly yes to their questions.
Oh.
When they asked, were there ever enslaved people in the house, they got on the Ovilus the word agree. And then they have this thing called a dead bell, where if you, it's like an but it's like an EMF machine, but instead of spiking instead of having like a bright light go up anytime that the machine says yes, it looks like a literal bell and it will ding in response to you.
Like a bell on like a countertop or like a swing bell.
Like you're at a concierge of a hotel.
And you're obnoxious
Ding!
and you're like,
Yes.
I need customer service. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so that it'll go off as yes or no responses, and they were able to get a lot of response from the bell. They got phrases such as people can't hear me, little boy around you, there are children around here.
Oh.
Absolutely. And then they said, can you ring the bell if the person in the attic will hurt us? And the bell rings.
Great.
And then the Ovilus said, look above.
No. No, thank you.
Like where they were right under the attic.
No, thank you.
Then 2 different devices at the same time said brother and sibling to kind of like confirm that the machines were getting the same energy or the same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
They were trying to figure out someone's name, and then they got the words fill up. And so they think that maybe they were trying to use the words fill and up in the machine to say Philip.
Oh.
And when they said, oh, maybe his name's Philip, then the Ovilus said jackpot.
Woo! Jackpot? That's pretty good.
Then they asked,
and then they were like, maybe his name was Jackpot. And it was like, no, you've gone too far.
Then they asked, is it an angry man that's upstairs? And the Ovilus said, untrue. And then they said, ring the bell if it's an angry woman. And then the bell rings.
Ooh.
Then they got the phrases hide and you're being followed.
Oh my God. It's almost hard to tell like what's like with the history, like hide
yeah,
to
it's like,
to the enslaved people, or is it like hide
and you're
actively
and you're
right
being
now?
followed.
Yeah.
It's like hide, you're being followed and you're on the Underground Railroad.
Right. Is
Let's
it that?
hide.
Or is it like currently you're in danger as you stand there? Yeah. Yikes.
So anyway, that was just a very small chunk of a 2-hour show I did not watch all of. So if you want to, there's a shout out to Paranormal Files.
Yeah, maybe we can, I texted it to the group, so maybe we can put in the show notes, and that way I can also remember to watch it.
Oh, good. Well, anyway, that is the Hannah
That
house.
was so good. Wait, can you remind me what town it's in Indiana?
I don't know where in
Oh,
Indiana.
okay. I'm
I should
curious.
know.
Hannah
I
House.
can
Let's
just.
see. Okay. Sorry, that's also the name of like a treatment facility, Indiana.
Oh,
It looks like it is in Indianapolis.
oh,
That's
fun.
not far from me.
You know, Indianapolis is one of the only places on tour I didn't get to spend a lot of time in.
Oh, well. Looks like we have
Well.
somewhere to go now. Would you ever want to
That's
do
true.
an investigation there?
Sure.
Yeah. Is there anywhere you're like absolutely not? I'm just curious.
That's a good question.
I don't know why I've decided now is the time to ask that, but
No, we're still learning about each other. I
we
love
are.
that.
Isn't that romantic after all these years?
Where do I
Do you like
not
pina
want to go?
coladas?
I do like getting caught in the rain.
Oh, do you?
And I like virgin pina coladas.
And I like virgin.
Oh, well,
Sorry.
depending on your definition, I'm right here.
Sorry, that was so inappropriate. Intrusive thoughts.
Let's see.
Win again.
Where is there a place you wouldn't go? I feel like
maybe some like very demonic place that is like people get possessed there all the time, you know? Like that kind of freaks me out. Like where people leave and say, "Oh, it followed us home and it ruined my life." Like I'm like, I don't think I want to play that game. You know?
I mean, that's like a fair one. That's
yeah. So anything like if Zach Bagans is like, I don't ever want to go back, I'm terrified, which I feel like, you know, sometimes he says for clout or whatever, but if it were like a real spot where investigators are like, oh no, it damaged my life pretty badly, I think I'd be like, no, I'll pass.
I feel like Zach Bagans is actually like a good gauge
barometer
for that because he gives off such like the vibe of like, I'm not afraid
Tough
of
guy.
anything. If he's actually afraid and like doesn't say I don't want to go back just to go back and like make it a whole spectacle,
right?
If he really never goes back,
he just silently stops
I would not
going.
Go there.
Yeah, it's almost like scarier if he doesn't make it a big thing. Just as like, nope, we're not even gonna address it. Yeah,
like he actually in Indiana, I think one of the houses that he said he never go back to was
oh yes in Gary,
was the Amon's house. And it was like
in Gary,
like the demon house. It was called the demon house, and that was why he had to start wearing glasses because something like flew across the room and hit him in the head, and now his eyesight's all fucked up. Like
Sorry,
something crazy.
I laugh because those are the most obnoxious glasses, and it's like okay.
He went from I don't wear glasses to look at my glasses
to like you can basically define me by my glasses now. Which listen, it's his prerogative. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I think if there was a place that other people are just like, don't even fucking try it.
No.
I mean, like, I think about the Sadamsville rectory that's nearby you, and like there was like a lot of possession situations there where like people were like standing in corners, like the Blair Witch Project.
Oh
like
no! Ooh,
like their faces were
in
the corner, and they would stand there for like they would lose hours of time, and like they would just stand there or like they would go. The owner once I think like went over to like check the mail and didn't even plan on going inside, and then like 6 hours later his wife was like, where the fuck did he go?
No!
And went to the house and found him just sitting in the basement silently.
Ew! Okay, fuck, I have chills. Yeah. That's horrible.
Like shit like that. I'm like, man, not for me.
And then not.
And then they tried to turn that shit into an Airbnb afterwards too.
No,
and I'm like, how? I'm like, do you put out a release? Are you just hoping to not tell anybody?
Like I will take it upon me to stand right off the property, 1 centimeter off the property, and tell anyone coming to look at this Airbnb or this apartment building, like, let me know. Here's a pamphlet. This is what you're getting into, because that's not fair. Yeah. All right. So, I have one of those cases for you today that drives us both crazy, which is an unsolved case. Yeah.
Man, I can already tell I'm going to need 2 FLTs after this. Okay.
You might. I'm going to have an FLT as well, and it's my little seltzer.
I was going to say, what's your FLT of choice?
Okay, well, I'm drinking my Cycling Frog Wild Cherry THC seltzer, and I want to give a heads up because some people get all antsy that I'm like always high in the episodes, and I'm like, I think one time I mentioned that I will sometimes take like half an edible and stuff, not during recording really, but just in general, and then people have started translating that to like, Christine's always high and the podcast has changed, and I'm like, no, I'm just my normal way of being, and sometimes it probably sounds like I'm high, probably before I ever even tried weed before. So don't worry. But yes, I'm gonna drink this. It's very low THC, and it'll probably won't kick in anyway till the end of the episode. So don't
Just
expect
in
any
time for you to.
funsies. Just in time for my dad to come over because he's visiting, and I'm like, okay. Uh,
Excellent.
I don't,
Excellent.
I don't know how to entertain you because
Amen. I would not know how to
I
entertain my
guess I
dad.
have
I'd be like,
a parlor,
you can go
a
home.
sitting room. I don't know what it's called. I have a living room.
You have yours is a yours. I think was supposed to be a parlor, but has become a sitting room.
Yes. Oh, okay. Wait. So what's the parlor? Is that the fancy
The
one?
parlor is like the fancy one where like people only like really get up to your
Yes.
front door.
I think it
and then
was traditionally a parlor. Like it was meant
Yeah.
to be like just really fancy Victorian furniture, and like you weren't supposed to sit in there because it has this like
yeah,
crazy fireplace and ceiling. It's probably meant to be like the show offy part.
yeah.
And then we have like
When like
the TV
when
room,
like you
which is where we actually just lay around and watch TV.
the sitting room. Yeah.
The sitting room, exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely become a sitting room because I feel like anytime I go over to your house, that room gets used
Which is
just
funny
as
because
often as any other room.
but it's no, but it's only but it's only when people come over. Like we never sit in there unless it's like visitors are there, which is interesting.
Yeah, but it's weird that you have really leaned into, whether it's on purpose or not, you really leaned into the let's hang out in the sitting room energy.
Yeah, well, and it's also Leona's office. Actually, I'll be honest, she calls it Leona's office, and so, or she calls it her office. So, essentially, if we're like we'll literally day to day be like, "Oh, have you seen my iPad? Yeah, it's in Leona's office." Like we literally call it that because my mom said it one time, and then Leona was like, "Yeah, that's my office." So I think we like to hang out in there. I mean, I do use it when people come over because it's like prettier and usually cleaner because we don't hang out in there. So I'm like, and it's sunnier, and I'm like, let's sit here. It's such a prettier spot.
It is also the day room.
Yeah,
The morning
exactly.
room,
And over the
maybe.
other part of the house is just like dog slobber everywhere and toddler crumbs, and so it's kind of like
And where
the
I nap. Yeah.
and where you nap. So it's a cleaner spot. So I think that's usually why. Anyway, sorry. So
Oh no.
that's where I'm
Go
at.
ahead.
That's where I'm at.
I was just gonna say you are the only person I know, like on our generation or like my mom's friends. You're the only person I know who like encourages that we sit in the room without a TV, which
Oh.
I like every time I go over because I think just out of like reflex now, my thought would be, oh, we're gonna go hang out, and, like put something on the TV
You know what's
and
so
then talk
funny
over
is
the TV.
I just never did that. Like growing up, like I feel like that's what normal families do. Like when Blaze's parents come over, they always like turn the TV on, and I'm like, "What are you watching?" And they're like, "I don't know." And I'm like,
Well,
"What
it's
do
like
you
how we
mean?"
watch Ghost Adventures, but we don't really watch.
But I
Ghost
struggle with
Adventures.
that so hard because I'm like, well, then I feel like I have to pay attention. Like I don't know, I'm mentally ill. In case you're
I think
wondering.
I think it's intentionally to block out any awkward silences that these days. It's like, oh, well, if we put a thing on, then once there's an awkward silence, we can just defer to the show and be like, oh, here's a comment I have about the show.
Well, when you put it that way, it sounds great. Although
I
maybe-
thought that was what we were all doing.
maybe
but
it's
okay.
too late for me now. I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, tell me a horrible thing that I'm going to get mad about.
Great. So this is the disappearance of the Klein brothers, and it takes place in the 50s. So we're going back in time a little bit. The year is 1951, and Elizabeth, also known as Betty Klein, and her husband Kenneth Klein lived together in a neighborhood called Hawthorne on the north side of Minneapolis, Minnesota. They were raising 4 sons together: 9-year-old Gordon, 8-year-old Kenneth Jr., 6-year-old David, and 4-year-old Daniel. All 4 boys were best friends. Adults described them as inseparable. The 3 youngest, especially, looked up to Gordon, who was 9 years old, and he almost took on like that older sibling nurturing role, which is so sweet to think of, like 4 little boys, and the oldest is like nurturing for the 3 youngest. I just think that's adorable, especially when you think of the 50s, because I feel like there's always that kind of idea of like boys have to be tough and beat each other with sticks.
Like he's like. Yeah, there's you. Sadly, especially in the 50s, at least the last thing you think of with boys is like nurturing.
I know,
and
I know. So that made my heart
yeah.
kind of full. Gordon, the oldest, was a very responsible child. And Kenneth, their father, worked at Northland Dairy Company, which provided his family a pretty stable home and income. And he was also very close with the family. He made sure to spend time with them. He taught his sons to fish, for example. And Betty, meanwhile, did the classic 50s, role. She stayed home raising the boys, and she was actually pregnant with her fifth child at this point. And when she was
Wow.
busy, she could count on Gordon to keep an eye on the younger boys because he was just good at being the responsible older brother. He often took his younger brothers to Fairview, which was a park that was just a few blocks away from the house. Many children in the neighborhood spent their time there, oftentimes unsupervised by adults. It was just like you run a block down the road and you can play at the park and meet your friends. It was close enough to home that they could walk there pretty safely, especially in groups with older children. And instead of taking the sidewalks, it was pretty common for kids to take shortcuts through people's yards for a more direct route to the park. So Betty, actually, fun fact, was one of 10 siblings.
What in the Duggar?
I
Okay.
know, I know. And her younger brother, Jim, the boy's uncle, was pretty close to his nephew's age because there was such a big age gap between her and her younger brother that her younger brother was actually close in age to her own kids, which is kind of fun. You know,
Mhm.
when there's like an
Very Duggar.
aunt or uncle. Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And so he sometimes spent time at their house in the city playing with the other boys like they were his own brothers, and they loved him and took him in like he was one of their own. All four Klein boys were known in the neighborhood to be very well behaved boys who followed the rules. Nobody ever really worried about them. Saturday, November 10th, 1951, is when everything went south. So this day was cold, a very cold day. And when you're thinking Minneapolis, I imagine cold takes on a whole other level of meaning. A cold day in Minneapolis, but for whatever reason, David, Daniel, and Kenneth Jr. desperately wanted to go play at the park. But Betty was very busy and she was 7 months pregnant with her fifth child.
Yeah, she's like, leave me
She's like,
alone.
it's cold as F out there, and you want me to walk over there? And Gordon was busy too. Sources differ on what he was doing, but he later said in an interview that he was repairing the sheath of his hunting knife because the side had come undone. And because he was only 9, but he was very responsible and he wanted to stitch it back together and get the project done by the end of the day.
Was the Allison of the
He
group, it
was, it's
seems.
like, I actually have to look at my spreadsheet for a little
He
bit.
he would know how to call the city, I'll
He
tell you that.
absolutely would know how to call the city. And so he said, you know what? Why don't you boys go to the park to his brothers and I'll meet you afterward. So the young boys went ahead and he said, I'll be there soon. After a lot of begging, Betty relented, said, all right, fine. As long as Gordon meets up with you, you can go early. So the boys actually had an established spot at the park where they always met each other. Like if two of them were meeting up later, they would go to the same specific spot to meet up with their other brothers. And it was this large old tree beside a sandbox at the northwest end of Fairview Park. So the three of them set out in their winter coats. Kenneth was wearing a bright red jacket, and so was 4-year-old Daniel, but his was a snowsuit. Pretty soon after, Gordon finished his project and left to meet his brothers, but when he got to the park, they were nowhere to be seen. At first, he wasn't worried because, again, he's just 9 years old. He's thinking, like, oh, maybe they just forgot to meet up at our spot. So he assumed he would run into them soon enough. He searched the entire park, especially near the rendezvous spot by the tree. And when he felt like he'd been as thorough as possible and checked every single spot, he ran home to tell his mom that he couldn't find his 3 younger brothers.
Mm.
So she called Kenneth at work and he drove straight home, left work to look for his sons. He took Gordon with him to help look, and they started driving around the neighborhood in case the boys had gotten sidetracked somehow between the house and the park. Maybe they had stopped at a friend's house, who knows? And of course, it's understandable that young children could get distracted or lost, but these kids had gone to this park from their house so many countless times that it wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh, they would have just accidentally took a right turn instead of a left turn. Like there's somewhere along the path
Something had to
something
happen.
exactly. Something must have happened. Otherwise it's not like they're wandering on the wrong street. Like they knew where they were going. At home, Betty called the police, who pretty much brushed her off, saying that they couldn't start a search until the boys were missing for 24 hours, which, even though that was protocol back then, it's pretty shocking because this is a cold day in Minnesota, and the youngest boy is 4 years old, and they're like out missing. And it's like the police are like, no, we have to wait 24 hours. And to me, I'm just like, who made that call? It's just a stupid fucking call. So a couple of police officers reportedly did drive through the neighborhood, but they didn't like really search. They just kind of did like a loop and patrolled, didn't see anything, and went back. But
Okay.
thankfully, the Kleins had neighbors who were willing to jump into action and help. So together, the neighborhood searched by car, on foot, and they looked everywhere for these three boys. At the time, neither Betty nor Kenneth even considered foul play. It was not even at the top of anyone's mind at this point in time. They assumed maybe the boys got lost or injured somewhere and were stuck. But with night falling and temperatures like swiftly dropping, they would be in danger even if they were just sitting on a sidewalk somewhere,
Right. I
perfectly
mean,
unharmed.
it was already cold when they wanted to go to the park. At
Yes,
night, it's going to be frigid.
exactly. And it's, I mean, Minnesota winter, like this is no joke.
Yeah.
And it
And
gets
it also
dark
makes you,
early.
and immediately, it's not like, oh, they just ran off and forgot the time. I mean, it's so cold that like they would have wanted to come home
Yes,
by now.
true. It's not like
So,
they're out having fun for 12 hours. Exactly. That's a good point. Like they would have
yeah.
wanted to be somewhere warm at this point. And so by dark, unfortunately, there was still no sign of the three brothers. So people were basically forced to go home and give up until the sun came up the next day, which that's always the thing I
Mm,
think about with these cases where it's like when the sun goes down, like there's just, you feel helpless. Like I just have to wait. And who knows what
yeah.
could be happening out there. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
So late that night, the police called the Klein home for an update. They said, "Oh, did the boys make it home?" And they were like, "No, they didn't make it home. They're still
Said that a
missing."
little too chipper. It's
Yeah,
like,
like, "Oh, they made it home, right?" Nope.
yeah.
They were assuming they had just run away, but no, they had not made it home. So the police finally said, "All right, fine. We'll get organized and start our search in earnest." So the next morning, that is what happened. The official search began. The boy's disappearance was immediately major news. It had front page coverage on newspapers in several major Midwest cities, and one news station sent reporters to the neighborhood to cover the story. And this was a time period when just 9% of American households had TVs. So
Mm,
if television coverage was made of an event, that was a really big deal. Like the fact that a TV
okay.
station sent a reporter down means like it was big news because there weren't a million channels and everybody could report on the hippo being born
Sure.
at the Cincinnati Zoo. This is like a really big deal. Not that the hippo was not a big deal, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
So Betty made an appearance on television at this point, and you can still listen to it. It's very hard to watch, at least for me. She said, "Look everywhere, in your basements, in your attics, any place. They could be there. I'm sure they're cold." Oh, it just makes me feel terrible.
Ugh, I'm sure their cold is
It's
hard to hear.
horrible. It's horrible. She said, "I'm very grateful for all the help that we've got." And she sounds almost like, I don't know if she was sedated, but she sounds almost sedated by like either shock or medicine. I don't know, but she just sounds very forlorn and like,
She's probably already fried of
yes,
like being,
yes, that's exactly the word. She probably hasn't slept. She's probably desperate. Like it just sounds so detached almost, and it makes it extra sad, in my opinion. So she genuinely believed that her sons were still alive or holed up somewhere, that somebody could find them in their shed or, somewhere they were hiding out and bring them home. And she still had not considered foul play. And like, if you think about it, back then, that just wasn't a widely publicized thing that kids got kidnapped from in the bright light of day. That just wasn't really
right.
something people considered until like, I think probably the 70s when there was kind of that surge. So the Hawthorne families, or the neighborhood families, were all on edge. This was really an unthinkable occurrence. Kids played outside on their own all the time, and this park was just a couple blocks away. All their kids, all the neighborhood kids played in the park and
Mhm.
walked there and back with no problem. And now people were suddenly like on edge, nervous, protective. One man who was a child in the neighborhood when the Klein brothers vanished later said he remembered that his mom would actually accompany him all the way to the park and back, even though that was like unheard of before this event. Um,
Wow.
yeah, he wasn't allowed to go out on his own or with other kids anymore, even in a group without an adult present. And this is just how people kind of shifted their lifestyles.
That's how it worked for when we moved to Fredericksburg, I guess, like, the year before I got there or the year that we were there, it was originally like, "Oh, play outside and I don't care and I'm not even gonna think about where you are." But within, like, right around the same time that we got there, there were 2 girls that lived in our area, and they were abducted and, like, killed. Like,
Oh
it
my
was, like,
god,
2
what?
and they were 2 girls my age, apparently,
Oh
so my
my
mom
god.
panicked and was like, "Fuck that, like, you're just not gonna go outside unless I'm with you." So, I I feel like it's probably a common thing in neighborhoods where this happens.
Oh,
It's like, well, the
sure.
parents just completely restructure how they think about
Oh,
safety.
yeah, because it's so close to home and you think like, if them, why not my kid? You know, like it's like
Yeah,
that could happen any day to anybody. Yeah, I
yeah.
feel like that really brings it home. And I mean, growing up, like Celine and I would wander all day. Like by the time we were 8 and she was 6, we would wander everywhere. We would wander into the inner city of Cincinnati and sell Girl Scout cookies on doorsteps. Like we were just everywhere and there was no trackers or anything. And looking back, I'm like, I mean, it was fine. Nothing really happened. But look, I'm like, I couldn't do that nowadays. I'm way too paranoid nowadays.
I literally even with the advent of, like, Find My Friends, I don't know how my mom survived me, like, going to college. Like, it's just, like, even just, like, the small things, like, regardless of, like, how safe an area is, the fact that we've gotten so good at being able to find people whenever we needed them,
Yeah.
the fact that I mean, not only was there no GPS, but, like, texting wasn't even what it is
Right.
today, or, like,
Right.
calling wasn't even what it was today, and so, I'm just like, "Man, I can't imagine just
Just
hoping
letting them
everything's going
out, letting
well.
them go. Yeah. And I feel
If I
like
don't hear something, I guess it's okay."
it's funny, I just think about it, I'm like, my mom was pregnant, she was, like, working full time, getting her degree, like, of course, she couldn't just accompany us everywhere, right? And she's a single mom, so it was like, we would just go play, and she would just let us, and it was fun and awesome, and, like, we got so much independence, we got to explore, we got to but, you know, it's funny now, I'm like, I don't think I could do that. Like, for my own
Yeah,
anxiety, I don't think I could do it, but we'll see. I mean,
yeah.
Leona's not big enough yet anyway, but I have a feeling I'm gonna be a lot more,
I feel like the second you see her as a six-year-old, you're gonna be like, "I would
oh,
never
yeah,
I
she's
couldn't
so little. Who's letting her wander around the neighborhood knocking on that was the other thing. We would knock on strangers' doors and do dumb shit, like pretend it was we would do this thing where we would pretend we thought it was Halloween. This is so embarrassing. And we would go up and knock on a door and be like, "Trick or treat," and they'd go like, "It's October," or like, "It's, like, September," and we'd go, "What? We thought it was Halloween." Like, we literally would play this game, and people would be like, "Okay, what do you want?" We'd be like, "Candy." Somebody gave us a can of peaches. Somebody gave us, an old watch that was broken. We collected all sorts of random shit doing this
It's
activity.
actually it's just trick or trick. It's
Yeah,
just
yes, 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 yes. That's actually a good point. We were just tricking around. Anyway, so we got to wander everywhere, but I think it's I would be a little bit different about it nowadays. So anyway, they did not consider foul play at this point yet. But the kids who lived in the neighborhood later remembered that this shifted how the whole neighborhood, probably the whole town, let their kids out and about. So the hours ticked by. There was no sign of Daniel, David, or Kenneth Jr. And like Betty, the police had not once considered an abduction or foul play. Their working assumption was that the boys were lost or that they had run away. And Betty and Kenneth just couldn't entertain the runaway theory for even a second. Even if the
Mm.
two youngest were following their older brother's lead, like why would an 8-year-old run away with his two younger brothers from like a perfectly safe and healthy and happy home? And none of the other kids had had any of this type of behavior before. They'd gone to the park so many times. It just, to the parents, didn't feel right. So, a couple days after the disappearance, a woman named Margaret Goodwill made a report that she had seen 3 young boys sitting on a curb the day the Klein brothers vanished. And she said she believed one of the boys was crying. So, police brought a dog to this spot, and the dog led them on 2 trails. One trail passed the police station and ended not far from the Klein's house, and the other ended near the banks of the Mississippi River near the Lowry Avenue Bridge. The brothers and other neighborhood children sometimes played at the bridge in summer weather, but they would not be allowed up there without Gordon, their older brother. Gordon and his parents didn't think that the boys would have gone on their own without permission, especially in the winter when this was usually like a summer spot. But maybe they got kind of bold and wanted to climb up there without their older brother and like test their independence, and so
Mhm.
maybe that's what had happened. But the Kleins pretty quickly began to question these scent trails that the dog had followed. The first issue being that there was no confirmation that the children Margaret Goodwill had seen were the Klein brothers anyway. So that's the scent that the dog was using to track. And like, who knows? These three boys could have been any other three boys. So it's not even confirmed that it was
Sure.
them to begin with. Um,
Oh,
I know.
man.
It's just like feels like a constant roundabout, like back to square one.
Yeah, especially because so many kids are playing in that park. It's like you
Yes,
never
that
have no
too.
idea.
So many kids. And based on her description of these kids, it really could have been any kids in the neighborhood, any three kids just like bundled up.
Sure.
She couldn't like see that many specific features. And then the next issue was the route itself, because the dog led police on a long, meandering journey that totaled nearly 7 miles. And it was hard to imagine a 4-year-old walking 7 miles in a snowsuit for any reason. Like it just didn't
Right.
quite add up. The third issue is that the dog had found two scent trails, which went totally different places. So it's like, well, which one is it?
Oh, like did they part ways? Like did they split up
Right.
or
Good point. Could they have split up? Which one of these could be trusted? Could any of them be trusted? Was it even the three boys, the Klein brothers that this woman had seen? So it was all just kind of a lot of question marks. And finally, 62 hours after the disappearance, a railroad worker found the first real physical clue, which were two children's knit winter caps that were laying at the banks of the Mississippi River on top of an ice patch.
oh
Yes,
shit.
yes. And unfortunately, Kenneth confirmed they were his son's hats. But
Oh.
yes, but something didn't feel right because he thought it almost seemed as though they had both been placed there next to each other on this ice bank by the river.
Hmm.
And so he felt a little odd, like it didn't look like they'd just been tossed off like a little boy would do. It seemed like somebody had taken them and carefully placed them there. But regardless, police immediately had developed this new theory that the boys went to play in the river, fell in, and drowned. So what they did next is they utilized the dams to lower the water level along that stretch of the river so they could conduct an aerial search. And the pilots reported excellent vision that day because a lot of the Mississippi River is very wide, deep, incredibly murky. But this area was actually crystal clear. And when they lowered the water level, you could basically search the whole thing from the air and see
Oh
everything.
wow.
Yeah. So I feel like that
Okay.
never happens with these stories.
No, no.
So the pilot said they could see everything from toilet seats to sunken tires all the way at the bottom of the river. Like they could see crystal clear. Two of the boys had been wearing bright red, like I mentioned, which is an ideal color when you're searching for someone in the water. But the pilots did a thorough search of this whole area and found absolutely nothing. No clothing of the boys, no accessories, no more hats, nothing. No red
And
jacket.
there was it like cold like there was snow? Could they get like footsteps
I don't
anywhere?
know that there was snow. There was an ice patch where the hats were found.
Okay.
I
Like
don't
from a
think there would have
previous
been
snow maybe.
I don't think there would have been footprints
Okay.
as far as I
Cuz
could.
maybe they like were just looking for cuz my
Yeah, what are your
maybe they
thoughts?
were maybe they were looking at the water and then they decided to leave but they just forgot their hats. It didn't occur to them to put them back on.
Mm,
I don't
like they
know.
had
But
taken
also
them
like
off.
aren't you so cold that you would never even want to take your hat off, but maybe if you walked
Maybe
4 or
it's like
7 miles or whatever, you
you get heated
were
up.
overheated. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because the trail that the dog followed led to the bank, the riverbank,
And it
and
happened like
stopped.
what a coincidence that the dog would pick up a scent and coincidentally find 2 of your
Mm,
kids' hats.
no,
So
so
like it
somebody
had to
else found
be
the hats um, on a different
oh shit.
day. Yeah, so it's like either I don't even know which riverbank it was. It could have been a totally different riverbank. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe
But also like I feel like that's maybe I'm overthinking it, but it feels a little like so someone just called the police and said I found 2 random hats or they were on a search and found the 2 hats.
so let me reread the bullet. Let's see.
Yeah.
So I say it properly. So it was 62 hours after the disappearance, a railroad worker found two children's knit winter hats at the bank of the Mississippi River on top of an ice patch.
I feel like if I saw two hats, there have been so many times I'm like walking in a park
Right,
and
but
like
like this is
a
a town
random
where
glove.
they knew this was going on, right? So like people
Oh,
who
oh, oh, oh,
lived in
right.
town were
Okay.
like highly aware of
On
like
top of it.
anything that might be out of place. And because this was
Okay.
such big news across the entire Midwest, like this was a big story. So everybody probably would have known um that this was something worth reporting. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And he
Sure.
didn't touch it.
Okay.
That's why, like, when the dad said, "Oh, it looked like they were placed there," it's because the railroad worker knew to call the police before grabbing them,
Right.
and was able to show how they had been placed there.
Oof.
Yeah. So the pilots are looking in this water. They see absolutely nothing except for the usual, just kind of like trash and other things, but no sign of any three of the boys. And think about it too. There's three boys. Like you'd think if even one of them fell in or something happened, like there would at least be a shoe or something kind of laid around. But I guess the hats were the only thing that they found. Um,
Hmm.
so investigators continued to search dams, bridges, and undercut banks, like anywhere maybe their bodies could have gotten stuck if they had fallen in the river and were swept away. And as I've kind of already alluded to, and most people in the US, or at least who've lived in the Midwest, know the Mississippi River is humongous. It spills out over 1,000 miles south of the Gulf of Mexico, at the Gulf of Mexico. And so it's very possible that somebody could get swept downstream and then perhaps get caught on some debris and never, just end up in a very random spot down the river and never surface again. But it was also unlikely that this would happen to three boys that disappeared at the same time. It's almost like
Right.
you'd think a sign of one of them would be discovered eventually on this on a riverbank somewhere along the Mississippi. But
I
they
feel like
didn't.
even there should be like in the trees, like the twigs caught like some of the fleece of their hat or something. Like,
Exactly anything caught by like a branch or a root or just like a bridge or they like underneath a bridge where it's shallower, but there's nothing. They traced the whole river, anywhere they could have gotten stuck and found nothing. And as they waited, no reports of children's remains or any other signs of the kids were discovered along the river. And despite no concrete evidence that the boys drowned, police decided to rule the deaths accidental and close the case. And this was just 5 days after they disappeared. So,
wow.
yeah, so very fast, open and shut, even though they didn't solve it. Um, the Kleins couldn't believe it. They were like, "We do not think our kids went to the river that day." They didn't believe that the dog's track was reliable, the one to the banks, and they just couldn't accept that the police were like, "Oh, well, they drowned. Case closed." And
Yeah.
so it was one of Betty's neighbors who actually mentioned to Betty, which, what a fucker, this neighbor, first of all, said, "Oh, they were probably abducted."
Oh, thanks, Bet.
First of all,
Thanks, girl.
thanks. Thanks.
Thanks, babe.
So now Betty's like, "Oh shit, like I had never thought that before." And so from that moment on, I mean, it's almost a good thing because it was not a good thing, but it at least got them
Yeah.
thinking.
Helpful.
It was helpful in the moment of like, "Oh, this is another possibility." And so Betty and Kenneth were suddenly convinced, "Oh wait, we think somebody took our sons. That's the only explanation to us that makes sense." And so in the days after the case closed, they are just sitting there wishing they could figure out a way to do something when a postcard arrives in the mail.
Oh no.
The postcard reads, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Klein, I suppose you are worrying about your three children who disappeared Saturday. Don't worry, they will be all right if you raise $15,000 by Tuesday, November 20th. If you don't raise the money by November 20th, we will have to dispose of your three children. If you want your three children, drive out on Highway 169 at 11 p.m., 10 miles north of Princeton, Minnesota. You will then see a blue Ford by the roadside. Inside will be your three children. If you have the $15,000 with you, they will be yours. Don't try
Oh my
any
god.
tricks."
Oh
So
my god.
somehow the FBI got wind of this or caught wind of this and they got involved.
Good.
Yeah. So on the 20th of November, several FBI agents trailed Kenneth as he went to the rendezvous point designated on the postcard, and nobody was there. And when the FBI searched the area, they could not find a single person who may have been suspicious in this area.
Wow.
So potentially a hoax, which
Oh, that's
is
so fucked up.
so fucked up. Yes. Or they got spooked. Who knows? But for whatever reason, They're not. They were not there. Strangely, though, when looking back at the case reports, it seems as though the Minneapolis police were not involved and they didn't even know about the ransom letter. It's like the FBI came in and then like nobody updated the police. So
What?
they
Okay.
never reopened the case because they never really caught wind of it. And so the case remained closed as an accidental drowning. But now, of course, the Kleins not only have like their nosy neighbor making comments, and also they also received this postcard, and the FBI got involved. So now they're definitely convinced that their boys had been abducted, and they're not even convinced the boys are dead. So instead, Betty starts
Hmm.
thinking, well, maybe this is an illegal adoption ring. You know, maybe they were abducted and sold. Into some kind of adoption situation, human slavery thing. Who knows? They thought perhaps like another family had split the boys up, and maybe that was why they were hard to find because it wasn't three of them together. Maybe they were separated. And poor Gordon, who was 9, had to tell himself that maybe his brothers were being raised in a happy home somewhere, and that was like the
Oh my
only
God.
way he could like assuage his own guilt, you know.
You know, as soon as you said, "Oh, well, he wanted to sharpen
I
his knife, so
know.
he wasn't
I
gonna go with
know.
them that day," I
You
was
like
like, I can
feel
just
it.
smell the survivor's
You
guilt.
feel
Yeah.
it. It's terrible.
Ugh.
He thought maybe they ended up in a home with more wealth and, as he put it, quote, more opportunities than they had with their parents. That was like his only
Ugh.
hope of a silver lining. He spent his childhood convinced that one day they would find their way back and just walk in the door and the family would be whole again, which is
I mean,
so
you
sad.
think like at least one of them has to know their address, so at
Right.
some point they're gonna grow up and check out the address.
Like
Like
an
it
8-year-old
seems
would know his parents' names, you know?
yeah, if they're abducted down the block, like they will eventually return.
You'd
Like your
think
thought
so.
is they'll oof.
Yeah.
Oh my God, poor Gordon.
I know, it's really sad. He was obviously very, very affected by the loss. Betty and Kenneth ultimately decided to move to a town called Monticello, which was just an hour, under an hour northwest of Minneapolis, to try and give Gordon a fresh start. But this was also like an incredibly gut wrenching decision for them because
Yeah, because
they come
what if the
back.
kids come back?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they essentially asked the family that lived there to please like keep us updated if anybody stops by, any weird mail, anything suspicious, anything even remotely like intriguing, please let us know. And they had roots and family connections in their new town, Monticello, so they were hoping that maybe their sons could find them there as well because a lot of their extended family lived there. So maybe like if they were in this area, they at least
Right.
knew that this was where they had family. But unfortunately, years went by, and even though the search was fruitless, it essentially consumed Betty and Kenneth's lives for the rest of their lives.
Sure.
Yeah. Every year on November 10th, they took out ads and papers searching for leads. They did this for decades, every single year on November 10th. And every year, calls came in about the boys from all over the country. Nothing really led to any real outcomes. They sought help from private investigators, elected officials, psychics. Anytime they thought there was even a slight chance that a lead could be legitimate, they followed it. Um, it's just so sad to see like how this just unraveled, you know, a whole happy family because they spent decades with their other children because in the meantime, they had their son named Donald who was 7 months in gestation when the older boys went missing. So when Donald was born, he never actually got to meet his 3 older brothers. He
Right.
only knew um
And I can't imagine being parents to a newborn who needs a lot of your
oh,
time and
yes,
energy
yes, yes.
but to still be racked with this whole other situation that
Yes.
like you can't get in. I'm sure there were times where like they felt like they couldn't give both their
And then
energy
and
the
to
right way
think to
or
Gordon, like, he's older, so he's probably more self-sufficient, especially if he's responsible, and so he probably just got kind of pushed to the wayside in a way, you know? It's like, there's so much going on, he probably was like, "Oh, focus on the baby and on finding my brothers," and he
yeah,
kind of
or imagine the responsibility complex of like I need to take care of
Oh,
this brother even
yes.
better because the last one's,
Right?
it's
Like,
like
you'd be so nervous about it, I mean
the 9-year-old guilt. Yeah, imagine like not being able to bond with your new brother because you're like, well, I was close to the others and they left,
and I
so
let them
I don't
down
I
or
don't want to get
whatever.
close to
Yeah.
this one. Yeah.
So the youngest brother Donald said in an interview that one of his parents was always at home when he was growing up, in case one of
Mhm.
his brothers that he never met showed up. The family never, ever, throughout his entire life, went anywhere together as like the complete unit because somebody always stayed behind. And unlike his brothers who learned to fish with their dad, Donald learned to fish from his mom and do a lot of other things with his mom so that his dad could continue the search out in the woods and, on foot. In 2013, two sheriffs from another jurisdiction started looking into the case, and they were not officially able to reopen it. Only the Minneapolis police could do that, but they were allowed to use law enforcement resources to investigate it on their own time as sort of like a research project on the side. And unfortunately, they noticed that much of the original information about the case was lost. For example, boxes containing evidence like the hats found at the river went missing at some point in the decades
Wow.
afterwards, so it's just gone. Nobody knows where it is.
Just geez.
I
Oh,
know.
so you can't even do any like new testing on
Testing.
it.
And
Yeah.
that's so sad because I feel like that happens a lot when things just get kind of shoved into closets and then or dusty storage rooms, and then when there's a move, they get left behind or thrown away.
Just in the shuffle. Yeah.
Yeah, in the shuffle. They did, however, get access to some files from a retired police sergeant, including interviews and notes from the original case. And so they were able to actually put together a profile of several suspects, even though these suspects were now deceased. One suspect was the Klein's neighbor when the boys went missing. And several other neighbors reported behavior at that time from that neighbor that they found odd. For example, one day just after the brothers disappeared, the man's neighbor noticed him unloading many sacks of concrete from his truck.
Mm.
And when asked, he said he was laying a new concrete floor in his dirt basement.
Nope.
Nope.
Don't like that.
One of his friends was scheduled to help him pour the cement, but he canceled and said he'd rather do it himself. And he stayed up all night pouring the concrete over the dirt floor on his own.
Nope.
The next day, his friend's wife went to his house and suggested he join the neighborhood search party to find the Klein boys. He refused and told her they aren't worth looking for.
Oh,
Hello?
couldn't even fake it.
Deserves a
Jeez.
punch in the nose. People in the neighborhood wondered if he had perhaps killed the boys and buried him in the basement. He'd also
That's my first thought.
I know, right? He also at that time replaced the wooden panels in the bed of his pickup truck, despite the wood having been new and in great condition. It didn't seem like it needed replacing, but he replaced it anyway, according to witnesses. But again, this is all conjecture, and like, who knows if neighbors are just like pointing fingers? Who knows?
And for all we
Because
know, like it may. Oh, sorry.
no, no, no. Go
You-
ahead.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. I
Mine's
was gonna say maybe that I'm just trying to think of every scenario, but I'm like, what if the kids weren't abducted, but what if that guy like hit them with his car
Mm,
and got freaked out that like he killed them by accident and just like took them
right, and
and
didn't want to get and
didn't want to get
went
caught.
too far. I've heard of that kind of thing happening where it was a freak accident and then the person's just trying to cover it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because I'm thinking like if he had to replace the wood in there and everything, maybe like there was blood he wasn't
Mm-hmm.
expecting to get in that area or
Mm-hmm.
but then wouldn't you find blood on the concrete of like if something happened? I don't know. I'm overthinking it, but
Well, he would have buried them in the basement and then laid the concrete because his
no,
base.
I'm saying on the road where
Oh,
he
on the
hit them.
road. Oh, I see.
I don't know.
I don't
It's
either.
also like a anyway, my thought is like maybe he was just like so ashamed and couldn't even like think about
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It
Yeah,
could
it's
also not be
possible.
him.
It's possible. It could not be him. It could be him. Yeah, it's just too many question marks. 10 years later, a woman who'd once lived in the neighborhood reported that she actually believed that same man that we were just discussing had once molested her young daughter.
Oh.
So she had accused him of that. But hearsay was not enough to reopen the case, and he died in 1975 anyway. Then there was another suspect, a man who used to work at Fairview Park, and the boys sometimes spent time with this man at the park, and he'd even take them to a nearby hill to go sledding in the winter. And
Mm.
shortly after the boys disappeared, he abruptly moved away to Chicago. And while living in Chicago, he ended up as a suspect in another investigation, the infamous Peterson Schuessler murder case involving the murders of 3 young boys in 1955. See, isn't it
Ding,
wild
ding,
though? Because
ding.
you feel like the first one is like an obvious yes. And then you hear another one,
Mhm.
you're like, well, no, it's this one. And then you could probably hear another
Yeah.
one where it's like, shit, it's definitely that guy. It like really makes you think like, man,
They were all ding, ding, dings on my mind.
I know.
And it could be none of them.
I know. It
We don't.
could be a freak accident and they fell in the river, but
They could have really just gotten lost and never found their way home.
yeah,
I don't know.
it's like this could have just been all a coincidence, but it's very strange the parallel of him being a suspect in this three young boys murder case in a totally different
Yeah.
town. But no strong evidence ever linked him to the Klein boys' disappearance, and he died in 1962, so there's no following up on that. And then this ransom note that the Kleins received, like this is still kind of a wild card because it could have been a hoax, like the most fucked up hoax ever. It could be just someone trying to profit from the tragedy as like a hoax to get money. But the
Mhm.
FBI, for whatever reason, found it believable enough to treat it as legitimate. But then, you know, why didn't the person show up? So it feels like another twisty dead end that we don't really have answers for.
Mhm.
So until their deaths, Betty and Kenneth remained certain that their sons were still alive and that they would one day find their way home. When Gordon, the older brother, was 75 years old, he did an interview saying he would never get over the loss, but he too believed his brothers were abducted and sold, not drowned or murdered. So the sheriffs investigating the case on their own time collected DNA from Betty before her death, along with the DNA of her other surviving family members, just in case. And although the case is still closed, they did list the boys in databases as missing persons to make the information and access to the DNA and other resources accessible for potential future investigations or if they find a John Doe, you know, anywhere. As of today, the case is still considered orphaned or closed. The sheriffs don't have the jurisdiction to open it, and the Minneapolis Police Department doesn't feel it has the cause to open it. So it's just kind of there with no oversight, really. Unless very new, strong evidence comes to light, the case will likely remain closed. So we can only hope.
Wow.
But in 2019, an author named Jack Elhai published his book on the case called The Lost Brothers, which then became a 6-episode podcast called Long Lost. And he actually first began speaking to the Kleins in the 1990s. And for decades, the case and the Kleins' endless hope compelled him to like keep telling their story. And he actually worked with them side by side throughout the rest of their lives to tell their
Wow.
story. And he shared their hope as well that publicizing the case to a wider audience now with this book, with the, you know, TV series, with a podcast series would maybe jog somebody's memory, or let somebody out there know that, you know, they might have a missing piece to this puzzle.
Yeah, well, today even the youngest boy missing would be in his 70s, right?
Yep,
So,
yep, yep. Yeah.
did you already say that?
No,
Sorry.
I did not. He'd be, I think they
Okay.
said 70. Yeah, in his early 70s. Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't even know if they're alive anymore, if they
If they
survived this
had
whole time.
survived, yeah. So that's the story. It's really, really a fucking bummer, but you know, that's what I do.
Yeah. Good
Yeah,
job. Good
thanks.
job bumming me out.
You're welcome.
Um, man. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I usually have a good guess at this point, but I got nothing. So thank you for your storytelling, Christine.
Yes, and I feel like when it comes to the people getting lost in the wilderness, I feel out of my depth because I'm like, I don't know. Nature's scary and wild, and I don't know what could have happened. I don't know what's reasonable. Like, I don't feel like it's my place to be like, they didn't drown because this. Like, I don't know anything about
Right.
Minnesota
I certainly wouldn't
winter.
survive in nature with
Right,
like
right.
even with the best source resources, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I feel like it for them to be three little children, no way.
Terrible.
But maybe they survived it and they just got adopted by somebody and I just watched a Law and Order episode where someone got adopted and they found out later that they had been kidnapped.
Oh yeah.
But like even the people who adopted them were just like kind of just convinced them over time. So I don't it could really be anything.
I know. I know. I hope that someday I always say this, but like I hope someday there's just some unexpected advance in technology or research that like DNA evidence, for example, something like groundbreaking that maybe can give answers.
Time travel.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, think of the crime department in time travel, in the
Oof.
time travel industry. Like, there, we wouldn't even need detectives anymore. We would be like, okay, let's just go back to the
They'd be
state and
time
just.
detectives, time crime detectives.
I swear to God, if that were a job, I would quit this podcast today and become a crime
Yeah.
traveler.
You and me both.
And just like that, that's my dream job. Wow, we would be so good together if we were partners.
Think of the power.
In
Think of
partners in time.
Holy shit. Crime travelers, partners in time.
Literally, if we don't get shirts that say that, I will cry.
I am at writing the book. TM. I've never
Hey.
really meant it before. T the fuck M.
If you have a Cricut machine right in front of you and you don't make me
I
a shirt for
do!
my birthday in a month that says partners in time,
Oh, I'm on it.
crime
baby.
traveler. I mean the way that I need that so
I
badly.
don't think it's even a shirt. I mean it will be a shirt, but I think it's bigger than a shirt.
It's a novella. It's a
novella.
trilogy.
Wow.
It's another horrible horror comedy soap opera like that one I mentioned earlier.
No, it's not.
Oh, except it's good.
It's a novella. I like the first option better.
Okay, well, I hope that was the worst part of your day telling that story. What do you have to look forward to for the rest of your day? But seeing your dad.
Well, I'm finally going to drink this THC seltzer while we do our after hours because I have a topic for it already.
Oh, good.
Can I tell what it is here so that in case people want to
Yeah.
know? So the topic I'm going to discuss on the after hours today is places to look in old homes for hidden treasures or hidden items and documents that families may have hidden away.
Okay, so I love that you said that because I was going to end on the fact that I just went looking through an old part of my closet and found a shitload of gift cards. So
imagine like in 200 years, it's like look for under floorboards, and then people find like an IHOP gift card, and they're like,
well, that's how
treasure?
that's how I got my drink today. I've been tearing through these gift cards this week. So
well, where were they in your closet?
I had them in a little pouch that I think I know myself well enough to know that the pouch was supposed to go somewhere else, but it just got thrown in the wrong box.
Oh,
and
so it wasn't
I've
like
now found
hidden
it.
in the walls or anything.
No.
Why was
but
I thinking that?
I
I'm
can
like-
dream.
Okay, so but I'm gonna tell people about like places in the house like to look like under, in the
Fun.
actual infrastructure of the house. So we
Okay.
will do that in the after hours, and we'll see you there. What do we call it again now? After hours.
Last call or something. I don't know.
Shit, I had such a good name for it, but Eva wasn't around, so then I just didn't commit. It's something creepy. Come check us out. It's at patreon.com/something. What is it?
And
No, tell me what it is first.
I don't know.
ATWWD podcast. We're terrible at promoting this.
Oh, After Dark? Is that what we're calling it?
After dark. Is that it? Is that what Eva said?
I don't.
Or did you just say it?
That's what Eva said. I have no idea
then
what
yeah,
it's
that's
called.
probably right. If Eva said it, I trust it. Okay, cool. See you there.
And
That's
why
we.
drink?